Launching Leaders within Queensland Rugby is a really exciting moment for us. The concept is about sitting down and talking leadership with people connected to the Queensland Rugby Union in many different ways, from board members, commercial partners and donors, to former players, coaches and people connected with the community game. The series is brought to you by our official luxury hotel partner, Amora Brisbane. It's been a privilege to work with Rob, Nikki, Tessa and the Amora team this year, and we're so excited to continue working with them as presenting partner of Leaders within Queensland Rugby and the Amora Centreline Lounge on Queensland Red's Super Rugby Game Days in 2025. If you haven't checked out the beautifully refurbished Amora Brisbane, you need to. Whether you're travelling from overseas, interstate, within Queensland, or you're just wanting a staycation for that special occasion, Amora Brisbane is perfectly placed in the heart of the CBD. We've been thinking about the concept of Leaders within Queensland Rugby for a long time, and to be able to bring it to life with 12 outstanding guests across 11 episodes was really enjoyable. Brett Clark has to be one of the busiest men in Queensland with extraordinary responsibility across a really large portfolio. One thing I've always noticed about Brett is he's so generous with his time, regardless as to where you sit in the pecking order. It was fascinating to hear Brett speak about leadership, decision making, and how he juggles his work-life balance. Well, Brett Clark, welcome to Leaders within Queensland Rugby. It's great to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about your connection to the game of rugby?
Yeah, Pete, I'm currently the chairman of the QRU and also chair the foundation, which is an integral part of what QRU are trying to do at the moment with redeveloping talent and Ballet.
And away from rugby, what else keeps you busy?
Yeah, lots of things keep me busy. Look, currently chair of Queensland Ballet, which is the second largest ballet company in the country. We have 170 full-time equivalent staff there, 60 dancers. Been on and off with the ballet for 14 years, so it's been a long-term passion of mine and my wife. I'm also a Director of Brisbane 2032, which is the Olympic and Paralympic Games that I believe will be transformational, not only for Brisbane and South East Queensland and Queensland, but also for Australia, so that takes up a bit of a role. With my wife, I'm a patron of the Mater Foundation. We've been involved with the Mater, having lost a child there and having a couple of premature children. We've been involved now for circa 21 years in philanthropic and fundraising capacity. And then my only paying job, if I can say that, is I'm one of the early founders of Chemist Warehouse and e-pharmacy, which at this point in time is, from revenue base, is the largest pharmacy chain in the country. So we now have close to 25,000 staff. We operate in 4 countries, and circa $8.5 billion worth of revenue.
All roles which are in leadership positions and in senior roles, but I'm sure it hasn't always been the case. You will have worked your way to that. Take me back to when you were growing up. Was leadership something that you always saw on the horizon and aspired to?
I didn't see it on the horizon, but I will say from an early recollection, a lot of the team sport, hence, if you kind of look at all the parallels with everything I do, it's all around teams. From an early stage, I'm quite definite in my views and quite outspoken in what I think is right or wrong. And from an early stage, I did tend to, not that I wanted to, but be thrust into being, the captain of the football team or the captain of the basketball team. Or so I think the leadership role in some cases, if I look at observations that I've seen with others who I know are, I see as strong leaders, they actually don't go technically looking for it. It just becomes part of their DNA. And if you're effective, not big noting myself, but if you're effective in your leadership style, people will look for you for some type of guidance. So you tend to gravitate to those roles. Happened quite from a young age, nothing, amazing, just on small level country football and country sport, to where I'm at now. I people who know me well know I like to take control of environments, not in a negative way, but I'm not tend not to be the shrinking violet, tend to be the person, not outspoken, but very definite in outcomes that I want.
Having that personality style ingrained within you, did you sense a need to... You were clearly going to pursue these types of opportunities based on that, but did you have a sense of needing to finesse your leadership style, learn how to articulate yourself effectively, particularly when you have views that some may find polarising?
Totally agree. And I think that the luxury of, I went to 6 different schools, and my dad was a bank manager, so I didn't get expelled from the schools. But my dad was a bank manager, and we moved every 2 to 3 years, lived in bank homes. And a function of that is you had to learn to assimilate very quickly with new people. And so that skill, I learned very quickly how to communicate, and communicate at a different level. And then if I extrapolate that out to my career in retail, which I've been in retail since I was 18, if you're an effective retailer, you need to read the room really quickly. So you will have a customer, a client, or a patient, if I talk about pharmacy coming in, and at 1 minute you could be dealing with quite a tense situation with people who have medical issues, versus, you could have the governor of Queensland that you want to serve. So your communication style had to change very quickly. And then those skill sets that I learnt, from moving around as a young age and then moving into a retail environment in a fast moving set, I think has made me a more effective leader, and I learn every day. So I'm not here to tell you that I've got it right, because I haven't. But what it enabled me to do was to be able to change the tone, how I communicate, how long, how short, and the messaging, and more importantly, the narrative and what you're trying to say quite quickly. People are busy, time poor. Just coming out of a meeting today in QRU, and my comment was, it's too long. We need to narrow it down. These people need to hear our message quicker and clearer. So I think that's probably most effective leaders are great communicators.
Along your journey, have you come across mentors or people whose leadership style, whether you're in actual contact with them or people you've watched from afar, have shaped the leader that you are?
Yeah, definitely. Without talking to any particular ones, one, when I was younger, he taught me to be the showman. And this was more from the retail perspective. And he said, if you want to be successful in retail, you almost need to be an actor. You almost need to put on an experience for your customer every time they walk into the store. So it was around about, coming out of your shell, not being embarrassed about what you want to say or what you do. So that was one that stuck with me for a long time. Another one taught me not to suffer fools. And, all of us get into a position in leadership where you want to be able to take people on the journey, and you want to change people who are not aligned with your vision or your goals or your culture. However, there's some people you can't change. And I think early in my cycle, I felt I could change everyone. But one of these people I got to know very well in a leadership position just said, Brett, you're not going to save the world. Sometimes you've got to learn to cut and run. And, one of the great sayings I heard from him was, hire slowly, fire quickly. And it sounds unpalatable, but if you're running a business, it's probably, you get a lot more return on your investment if you can understand that.
Amora Hotel Brisbane is the proud presenting partner of leaders within Queensland Rugby. Relax in style with spacious accommodation, modern facilities and modern Australian dining. Or explore the city with just a short stroll to the city centre, Queen Street Mall and Howard Smith Wharves dining precinct. Plan your next adventure today at amorahotels.com. That's an interesting anecdote about a lesson that you learned early in your leadership journey. Are there other particular, whether they're mistakes or spikes or moments along the way that you particularly remember that have helped shape the leader you are now?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I suppose it was a function of I've always started my own businesses. So I've been working for myself since I was 21, 22. So I haven't been in the corporate. So you learn on the tools. One of the things that happens when most people who start their own businesses, what happens is your cheapest asset or resource, if I could say, when you start is time. And so you will work 18, 20 hours a day, whatever it has, because it's the fear of going broke and the fear of not succeeding. If I fast track now, I sound like an old man, but my most valuable resource is my time. And, I struggle to fit in all my roles. I love it. It's the old adage of if you want something done, give it to a busy person. But that's one of the pieces that, if in hindsight, you do have to go through the journey of learning everything when you're, certainly your own business. But as I've matured and as a business owner and a business operator and a leader, I've learned to delegate a lot more. And in hindsight, looking back, could I have delegated earlier? Probably. I think it's been successful what we've achieved, whether it's Ballet, Rugby, whether it's Chemist Warehouse, whether it's whatever else we've been involved with. But, if there's only one of you, if you think you can do it all, you're a fool. And, it almost killed me thinking I could do it all. And then when I suddenly, the concept of where am I adding value? And honestly, that's my mantra every day now. I wake up and I go, I'm only going to get involved with whatever I am doing if I can add value. If I can't add value, don't touch it, because there's going to be better people, smarter, faster, quicker in your organisation who can do it. And if they're not in your organisation and they can't do it, you've actually failed as a leader. You've selected the wrong people.
It's a really valuable learning that has come to you through the experience. How do you work in terms of helping to develop future leaders within the organisations you're involved with, and how do you balance letting them learn those things for themselves through experience, but also being able to help them along the journey and steer them along the way?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, selection is a key issue. Training and mentorship, stating all the obvious, is a key issue. But one of the things that I think I've been very clear on is, and I mentioned earlier around the communications. And one of the things I talk to, if I use Chemist Warehouse as an example, when we're doing a lot of our business development and new sites and new stores, and one of the things I'll say to our management or our senior leaders is to say, look, this is our goal. Do you understand our goal? And it could be just a small project. The second thing is, have I provided you the resources and the talent, if I can use that as an example, but the skills to be able to do this? Because if I haven't, what are we missing for you to deliver this? And do you understand the timeline? Do you understand the outcomes? And once they get to that point, I'd say, well, is there anything else you need from me? But I'm just going to tell you now, if it does go pear-shaped or it's not going to plan, you can come to me, right? And then when we reflect on a project, and sometimes they go bad, one of the comments I will say is, I'll say, Pete, you sat and looked at me. And it's not about yelling and screaming and disappointment. I said, but you sat and told me, you said to me, agree? You said to me you understood the project. You said to me I had provided, or the organisation had provided, the skills and the resources to require to deliver this project on time. And not once did you come back and ask for help, or did you tell me it wasn't on time, or it was. So I said, what part do you think I dropped the ball, and what part did you drop the ball? So again, it's not about blame, it's about accountability, and it's about living up to your promise. And I think a lot of our leaders that have come through our organisation, who have gone on to other organisations, the good ones, or even stayed within our organisation, a lot of them talk about that process, saying it's clear, it's precise, and it's almost like you're signing a contract every day. And I look at my younger daughter's just graduated, and I won't name the big company she's working for, but she doesn't get that. And she comes home to me, and she's 26. She's in comms and journalism, and she's not really clear on what her roles are, what her deliverables are. I mean, she'll get something because there's no one really driving her. And I think that's what I feel for the younger generation. I'm not saying everyone's in that situation, but you just need to understand what the deliverables are every day.
It's a very teachable, experience you've given us there around, it's almost that verbal contract with your staff. How do you think your staff and even your contemporaries and the boards in which you serve would describe you as a leader?
I think I'd like to think, maybe you should ask them, not me. I think I'm a good listener, as I mentioned. I don't always talk for the sake of talking. Listening is so critical. You'll hear that from a million people. The second thing is that I hope they think I'm fair. And then the other thing I think people know who deal with me is I'm very decisive. So people want to be led. There can't be kumbaya. There can't be, let's all go together and feel what good looks like. People want to be led. And then I think closing the loop on that, I don't always get it right. There's many times I get it right, but you've got to own it, right? You've got to own when you got it wrong. And if I use that analogy I used earlier about, how we talk to our staff, that's kind of the reflection I do. And so I think, board members, senior management team at Chemist Warehouse and others understand that I'll listen, take in all sides, and then be very clear on what we're going to do. Right or wrong, you just got to make a decision.
Just finally, you live a very busy lifestyle, with lots of commitments, I dare say lots of competing commitments.
Yes.
How do you manage your diary and also make sure that your work-life balance has a modicum of sense to it as well?
Yes, well, again, maybe my wife should be answering that question, whether I'm successful or not. Look, that is a struggle. Interestingly, I've never had an EA, so I run my own diary. I do everything myself. My wife and I recently put on a shared EA to try and get some time back. I mentioned about, time has now become our most valuable resource, and to get some more time back is critical for not only business but for family as well. So I recently put on an EA, and she only lasted 5 months, purely because I couldn't. I'll be honest, I'll own it. I couldn't let go of my diary. I couldn't let go of the things I do to run my life.
But Brett, is that, just to jump in quickly, is there a sense of that you do have such varied responsibilities that it's hard for someone to understand how to prioritise?
Yeah, definitely. And my every morning I wake up, my life is very fluid. And I've slept in my bed 3 days in the last month. Not complaining, but that's just a function of, the different things I do. I had to go to different places, and life isn't always like that, but, you just need to be able to respond. And I think the concept of, the e-mobility and all the stuff we use with internet and technology now allows you to manage that. But you're right, Pete. I mean, it almost sounds hypocritical because I mentioned earlier in our discussion about, delegation, but that for me, I actually get disappointed when I let people down. So like to do this today is important to me. And if I had someone managing my diary, they would not see this potentially as important as other things. And to teach that, this is my view, and I'm probably wrong, but to teach that for someone to manage my diary, I don't think they can. And after 5 months, I realised they couldn't. And it wasn't a function of their capability. Actually, it was a problem with me that I needed to manage the diary. There's other things that I outsource. But I think time is critical, and everyone for a different podcast around effective meetings and effective processes. But if you can't let people down, right? And that's probably another thing leaders do well, is that irrespective of where you are in the food chain, you can't let people down. So diary management, time management is a critical part of the type of person you are, irrespective of whether you're a leader or not. I do get annoyed when people aren't on time or I'm not on time, because I think to myself, well, I know how valuable my time is. Are you being disrespectful of my time, or are you just not efficient? Now, it's different if you're caught up for another reason. I understand that. So, but simple things in life we need to follow.
Brett Clark, thank you for joining us on Leaders Within Queensland Rugby.
Pleasure, Pete. Always fun.
Thanks for listening to Leaders Within Queensland Rugby, proudly presented by Amora Hotel Brisbane. Head to Apple Podcasts and Spotify to subscribe and get a new episode every week. Or if you can't wait that long, head to the Queensland Reds YouTube page to see all the episodes in one place.